Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4152, 4152. Today's date is July 14, 2026. It's been almost like a night at exactly 9:33 p.m. Oh boy, I just had a very heavy dinner. I'm actually walking on my rooftop. Whatever. Let's just jump into the question. By the way, from last couple of days, the rain is stopped. Yeah, the monsoon is stopped. Monsoon is not stopped, by the way. Actually, like this is actually happen every single time. Okay, so let me tell you the kind of like a accurate, not accurate, a kind of like a weather report. All right. So let's talk about monthly. Okay. So from monthly, today's date is 14th of July. So 14th of July. So there is no rain. 15th of July, there is no rain. 15, 16, 17th of July might have little bit rain. Okay, yeah, little bit of cloudy. 18th cloudy, no rain. And probably from maybe 24th of July, rain might gonna start. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So end of the July. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about the August. August have completely kind of like a cloudy and rain, which is also really good. And the September is also a kind of like a simply cloudy and things. So I'm thinking that ki the rain is actually kind of like a like basically what I kind of like experienced that. I'm belong to the India, by the way. So the weather prediction over here is a weather pattern over here is a kind of like a bit more different. Okay, like different means what? Like different means that ki usually when the rain actually happened, so rain actually started in India, like where I live in central part of India, where it actually started from July. Okay, yeah, like end of the June or July. Okay, July, kind of like a July for at least like a till 15th or 25 July, there is a kind of like a hand like a dense rain actually happened. Okay, yeah, and then after that, August is a completely dry. Okay, like there is no kind of like a rain, and it will be kind of like a so much warm and things. It kind of like a feel like really warm, like a really warm. It feel like summer. And then September is also kind of like a somebody like a dense rain, like a very heavy rain and things and that. Yeah, monsoon is a kind of like a very much unpredictable, and it is completely depends on El Nino. Okay, yeah, what is actually El Nino? I already mentioned what is actually El Nino and things and that. It's a weather pattern. Okay. All right. So let's just jump into the question. Okay. Yeah. Like kind of like a talking about this nonsense and shit. It doesn't really make sense. All right. Let's just jump into the question. All right. Okay. So question is okay. It's not a question, by the way. It's a kind of like a scenario. Okay. Yeah. Failure scenario that if something actually happened, then what is actually your like how do you supposed to handle that scenario? Okay, toxicity. Okay, toxicity spread, users started sharing, trolls take over, good user leave, platform dies. So these are kind of like a some failure. Okay, yeah, so if such thing failure actually happened, then what I supposed to be do? Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? Okay, I wanted to build application called My Artifact. What exactly is this application? When you write the diary every single day, you cannot able to be write the diary the way that you wanted to. The reason is that your thought process are actually much more faster than your writing speed. Your writing speed is actually slow is because of you need a pen, you need a paper, you need a convenience, and even after that you need to put a lot of amount of effort to write or print your thoughts. And because of it kind of like a required lot of amount of effort, almost no one writes a diary, like no one. Yeah, but instead of writing a diary, what if we could recorder diary, like a audio recorder diary. The stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, this is my audio diary. I called it my artifact. My artifact episode number 4152. I am doing this thing for past 11 years. I am doing this thing every single day. Because of writing a diary is a self-reflection process. So as a recording a diary, so as a recording artifact is a self-reflection process. It adds so much amount of value inside of me. The person that I became today, the person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. The amount of value it add inside of me, I wanted to share this value. How do I supposed to do that? By building an application. My application is somewhat something like a YouTube platform. Like a YouTube, you actually upload your video, other people sees your video. Same thing, you actually record your artifact, upload your artifact in artifact platform. Other people kind of like a listen your artifact. Before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences, specifically worst possible consequences. I went to ChatGPT, I tell my app idea and tell him that he suggests me hundreds of all the worst possible consequences in question format. ChatGPT kind of like suggests me all those questions. This is one of those questions. Alright, now regarding about the question, its question says that a failure scenario regarding about toxicity. If toxicity is spread, then what will gonna happen and how do you supposed to be control and things and that and that. Okay, first of all, let's understand toxicity. Before we kind of like assembly talk about something, like let's understand the toxicity. What is exactly the toxicity? A toxicity means like that ki, okay, it's a very, let's like basically everyone understand what is actually toxicity, but probably not. Okay, yeah, because definition of toxicity is a kind of like a completely different than person to person. Let me explain something. Okay, yeah. Okay, so first of all, is that key definition like how much money that you wanted to earn. Okay, yeah. Most people might gonna say this much amount of money, this much amount of money, this much amount of money, or this much amount of money. Probably 10 out of 10 people have kind of like a different number. Okay, yeah. Why? Because of that, key everyone kind of like see the money or see the value differently. Also, definition of success. Tell me the definition of the success. Ask this definition to everyone. Everyone have kind of like a different opinion. People might gonna say kind of like a money. People might gonna say relationship. People might gonna say money and relationship. Yeah, kind of like the same. Okay. Now, ask the kind of like another kind of like a question that ki what is exactly your opinion regarding about money. Okay, yeah. Every people have kind of like a different opinion and things and that and that. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki we do not have a kind of like a concrete definition of success. We do not have a concrete definition of right and wrong thing. Okay, if you not really understand what is the right and wrong thing, let me explain in simple language. What is 2 plus 2? 4, right? Ask this question to everyone. 100 out of 100 people might gonna say 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Even if that particular person is kind of like a simply place everywhere on the universe, the answer would be 2 plus 2 is always equal to 4, right? Yeah. So basically this thing, this is a concrete answer. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. But the definition of success is a kind of like a have very varied kind of like a something answer. Like a meaning of money or kind of like a things and that and that. Why we do not have concrete answer for this thing? Because everyone thinks very differently. Okay, yeah. And everyone thinks very differently. That's why they have kind of like a different opinion. And because of they have kind of like a different opinion, everyone kind of like a see the world in very different point of perspective. Now, different point of perspective means what? Example. Sorry. Let's just say a particular girl who is a kind of like a sharing a kind of like a bikini photo. Okay, yeah. She kind of wear a bikini and she kind of took the photo, upload that photo on Instagram platform. All right. Now, basically, is this thing that is she doing something wrong? Well, let's just understand from her point of perspective. What is what is actually the reason why she kind of uploaded that photo on a social media platform? Because of she kind of represent that she's a kind of a represent of freedom of women and things and that she can able to do anything at all and things and that. All right. So do you understand? So basically is this thing. Let's take a two scenario. Okay, scenario number one. A boy is a kind of sharing a kind of a photo of that particular boy is a kind of wearing a kind of assembly underwear. Okay, yeah, just underwear, and he's a kind of flexing his muscle. Took a photo, upload that photo on social media platform, and at the same time, girl kind of do the same thing. She kind of wearing bikini and kind of took a photo, upload that photo on Instagram platform. Okay, yeah. So basically, from woman point of perspective, she is kind of saying that she is a reflection of freedom, independent, or kind of a free, or basically she kind of the her opinion point of perspective. She's kind of say this thing that she's independent, she's free, she's a a lot of stuff. How do I supposed to explain this? And these are that and that and that and that. Okay, so she's that point of message she was kind of provided from that image. Okay, yeah. Does people are kind of thinking from that point of perspective, from woman point of perspective? Well, definitely not. Why not? It is because of that as I mentioned, people have kind of a very different opinion. Okay, usually is this thing. Okay, yeah. Right now I'm kind of derived towards the kind of little bit of kind of a sexual kind of content, but yeah, it is kind of a somewhat something like that. Because of that also the stuff that I'm kind of try to tell you, it is also a kind of a something my opinion, and it is also my opinion would be a bias because I am also from a particular demographical place where my surrounding or my thought process are kind of a shape by my surrounding and things and that, but I try to be kind of as much as less biased as I could. Okay, let's proceed. So from woman point of perspective, she kind of mentioned that this photo or this kind of a piece of content is represent the identity, represent the kind of a freedom, the represent of kind of somebody that how she free and things and that. Okay, and by kind of a taking photo like that way and kind of representing that I am kind of free and things. So she is her kind of a somewhat something that her point of perspective, but other people do not think from that point of perspective. Why? Because of that other people do not see the whole of you, they see the picture. Now what is actually whole of you and see the picture means what? Example, when you when you upload the photo, okay, of your and whatever kind of things, you kind of assembly represent a kind of assembly your personality as much as possible it is. Okay, yeah. But other people is kind of see the photo, they do not see the personality. They can see the personality when they have kind of a multiple exposure of you and things and that, and the personality is actually represent by kind of a multiple shades of emotions and personality, multiple shades of emotions and things and that, right? But a kind of a half naked kind of a bikini photo is represent personality, yeah, that is true, but it is also represent a kind of a somewhat something, a little bit of a sexual thing. Okay, yeah. Also, I might be wrong, but this is what kind of simply the most of the people think, because let me tell you one thing, the right and wrong statement does not depend on right and wrong, it depends on how many people think it is right and how many people think it is wrong. Okay, so if 100 out of almost like a 70 to 80% of the people think that photo is a kind of like a little bit of sexual, then that photo is a little bit of sexual, even if the owner of the photo does not uploaded that photo from sexual point of perspective, but still that photo count as a kind of like a somewhat something as a sexual. Do you understand things? Okay. So from this point of perspective, okay, so usually now this is what it is now, like now what I'm trying to tell you, I was trying to tell you about the toxicity, right? So toxicity, it is actually come from different opinion, different things. Hundreds of people are actually commenting on that photo regarding about you look good, sexy things, and that and that and that and whatnot comment. Okay, yeah. And the girl might kind of like experiencing that people are kind of like a so toxic and things and that. I uploaded photo from my freedom point of perspective, my kind of like a simply things point of perspective, but people kind of like took it as a kind of like a sexual and things and that. So that woman kind of like a thinks that she is a kind of like a going through a lot of toxicity and things and that, and she kind of like experiencing a lot of toxicity. Okay, so do you understand, toxicity is not kind of like a something that a term is. Toxicity is a kind of like a things that people think very differently, see the world very differently. Every person have a kind of like a see the world from different point of perspective. Okay, yeah. Some people, their perspective of looking at the world doesn't really match with your perspective of looking at the world, so their opinion feel like toxic or feel like kind of like a simply that opposite of your thinking, so it feels like toxic. So that's why there is kind of like a things that key toxicity is actually kind of like a word is actually created. Okay, yeah. So can we stop the toxicity? And basically, can we stop the toxicity? Well, let me tell you one thing, you can't stop the toxicity. Why? Because that is not a right thing. Toxicity or having a different opinion of looking at the world, like a toxicity means like that a kind of like a like basically this thing, the people who are kind of like a spreading the toxicity, they have kind of like a different way of looking at the world. Your way, like basically every, as I mentioned, every person actually look the world very different point of perspective. You look from different point of perspective, other person kind of like a look very different point of perspective. Every person have a kind of like a perspective match with the other people perspective, they are kind of like a common interest. But if the person who has a completely different perspective of looking at the world, then probably we consider as a kind of like a toxic and things and that. So basically toxic is not even exist, it's a kind of like a different perspective. Having different perspective of the people, it is also really good thing for the community. Why? Because it kind of like represent that key why we are kind of like a wrong, okay, and right, because right and wrong statement, it is also come from the different perspective of the people. And also right and wrong statement is kind of like defined by how many people consider is right and how many people consider is wrong. Yeah. So let's talk about the toxicity. Let's talk about in my application how the toxicity will kind of like a spread and things and that. Well, first of all is that I have to go to number 2. I am kind of like getting a lot of pressure, so I'm gonna pause here for a while. Okay.